Welcome, everybody, to the National Equine Health Call for the month of February. Appreciate all the speaker suggestions and topic suggestions. Please keep those coming. And again, this is a recorded call. It will be processed and posted to the Equine Disease Communication Center here within a week. As always, we appreciate our speakers taking the time out of their schedules to give us some updates. And today's schedule today for the agenda is we're first going to have USDA folks give us a screwworm update. And then we have two representatives from the American Horse Council. One is going to speak on the temporary international movement of equids legislative initiative of the industry. And the second speaker is going to be speaking about the Horse Protection Act. So without further ado, I will actually turn this over to the USDA folks. I don't know who wants to start, Dr. Diab, Dr. Rector, or Dr. Holstrom. I will turn it over to you all.
Thank you, Katie. Good afternoon, everybody. Really glad to have a chance to talk with you about a new school. And as a matter of fact, just to share with you, I just got off the phone call in between Sonora and Arizona, and guess what the topic was, right? New school. So I can provide kind of a high level, basically. So as most of you are aware, we are working really closely with Mexico for over a year now. Uh, we are learning from Mexico, but we are also providing information to Mexico based on our individual assessments. So when I say assessments, we are sending teams to Mexico to basically go into specific Mexican states to see what is their response in connection with the new Chrome and provide them a detailed information what there might be opportunity for the improvements. But by doing that, we are also learning. You probably have seen that there was a slow progression of the new Chrome in Mexico as it has moved north. So you are probably aware that we had a few cases in Tamaulipas, definitely, most recently. And what's kind of interesting in Mexico, one thing to kind of highlight for you guys, this fly is really lazy. This fly doesn't like to fly a long distances. This fly is looking for the source of water, shade, and living tissue. And there's plenty of that on the eastern coast of Mexico. But we also have seen, I would say so, illicit movement of livestock that's happening in Mexico in some cases that has moved these flies. So you are probably aware of at least two cases in Nuevo León that we had the last December, actually, where it was clear that those larvae that were actually identified were on the animals that just moved from south of Mexico. So Mexico is tackling that challenge definitely, but one of the best tools that we have that you are definitely aware is a new screwworm sterile fly. So you are probably aware that right now we are producing in Copeg in Panama around 100 million sterile flies a week. And those flies are dispersed via basically air or from airplanes. You probably have seen a most recent announcement from our secretary where we moved the polygon of dispersal that actually goes now into Texas at least 50 miles, but primarily covers Tamaulipas and Veracruz. And a reason that we did it, we were trying to be proactive based on the cases that we have seen in Tamaulipas at the time. We are also doing a different a dispersal density within that polygon, depending on the regions where we have identified a new clone. So, for example, there are specific sections of Tamaulipas and Veracruz where we release a larger number of the sterile flies. We are doing this out of abundance of caution, basically, and again, to be proactive, to be ahead of the fly. You are probably aware that we are working with Mexico on actually retrofitting their fruit fly facility or production facility that is in Metapa, Chiapas. We have invested around $21 million down there, and Mexico should have a conversion of that fruit fly this production facility done. It looks like by July or August of this year. And they're going to have a capability to produce 100 million sterile flies a week at that specific location. What's important to point out, we are working really closely with Mexico regarding a dispersal of the flies, which means these flies will be available to us in the case that we have cases in US as well. But a crown jewel that we are trying to build right now is a domestic production facility for the sterile flies. So you are aware that our secretary announced that we are planning to build that. Sorry, guys. I apologize. I was talking last hour, so now I'm talking again, right? So we are looking to produce around 300 million flies at that location, which is at Moore Air Base, which is Edinburgh, Texas, or Southeast Texas. We expect that we're going to probably be that specific location will be coming online probably in the February of 2027. So it is a little bit down the line, definitely. But 300 million and 100 million in Metapa, and finally 100 million at Copec will bring us to around 500 million sterile flies to release. That is the number that we used back in the 80s and 90s, basically, to be the flyback. That's kind of a brief update regarding where we stand with the sterile flies. You probably have seen in the newscast recently, or announcement that actually went out on Monday, where we finally finished and opened a dispersal facility on U.S. soil, which is again at the Moore Air Base. We are able to disperse 100 million flies from there. We have hired staffing and trained staffing, but we will continue to use a dispersal facility that is in Mexico for right now, because most of the releases are happening in Mexico, and hopefully we will not need to change the polygon in the US, which means we will not get a case of the newest quorum. But hope is not the plan, right? You probably have seen recently there was announcement of a new Quorum Grand Challenge, where we are providing up to $100 million for a different projects and ideas. And we base this on the highly pathogenic avian influenza Grand Challenge, where we really received interesting projects and ideas for further development. Ultimately, we are trying to get assistance from private industry. What is the best way to develop a further either sterile flies or methods of the treatment, and so forth and so on, right? I'm going to talk just briefly about what we are doing in US. We are extensively training our staff and working really collaboratively with our state partners across the country to provide that training as much as possible. We have developed two what we call New Scrum strike teams, and provided them equipment. They are ready to go on a minute's notice, basically, to respond to a new Scrum. And a lot of our state partners are doing something similar right now, working with us. We are also doing a large number of tabletop exercises, and I believe so that probably Lindsay will be talking about that, because she did an amazing job with our partners down in Texas, and that's now spreading across the country. But a most important thing to mention to you guys, we have two streams of surveillance. We have traps on the border with Mexico, 121 traps that are specific to a new screw. You might ask, basically, why only 121 when that border is pretty large? Well, as I said, this fly likes three things. It likes water, shade, and living tissue. So we did assessment, basically, where are those locations on our border with Mexico, and placed the traps down there. In addition to that, PPQ has around 5,000 fruit fly traps that we are also using to catch potential flies of interest to us. I can share with you that so far, since we put those traps, we have caught around 42,000 Cochleoma flies, and none of them have been positive for the newest scrum. They were all Cochleoma maxillaria, not Cochleoma hominivorax. Definitely a good news. A second stream of our surveillance is definitely a foreign animal disease investigations, and I don't need to provide you probably details because you guys are very well aware how that whole system is actually set up across the country. And then last thing, just to say, and I believe so that Lindsay will be talking more, is a new Wisconsin playbook. I mean, that is our bar or play-by-play how we're going to respond to a new Wisconsin. And I know that you guys also from your equine industry have provided extensive comments, and thank you for that. I can tell you that we received an amazing number of the comments, which is great because it's going to help us to develop this product further. And last thing that I will just mention before I actually hand to rest of my colleagues, I know that it's of big interest to you, a border reopening with Mexico. I can share with you that is a daily conversation in this building that either Dr. Halston or me have a pleasure of talking with our secretary probably 2 or 3 times a week at the minimum about border reopening and providing details. Let's keep in mind that this is really a comprehensive decision that that needs to be made by our secretary. But I want to highlight that all the levels of the U.S. government are definitely involved and fully aware. We do understand of the consequences of the port closure for your industry, or especially for our feeder, feeder cattle industry, definitely, guys, right? So, but I just want to highlight that you are aware that that is ongoing process, and it's going to depend on a multifaceted approach and different questions that we get asked on a regular basis. So I'm going to stop there. Katie, and hand it out, I guess, probably to Lindsay or Tim.
My camera going. So yep, I can go next. So thanks, Dr. Zito, for the good pass off here and going right into the playbook. So as you're aware, we released a draft New World Screwworm Playbook, which is our response plan, this past October. And so for the past 4 months, since we released it, we've been getting written feedback from the different industry groups and state and wildlife partners, and then also meeting with those groups. So we've met with all those groups kind of across the spectrum of thinking about, New World Screwworm impacting all warm-blooded animals. And so we're, using that feedback and those discussions to help us to revise the playbook. And so currently we're expecting maybe in the next month-ish to have a revised playbook based on that feedback. I just want to mention that playbook, right, it is a response plan. It's written kind of more action oriented. So it's a bulleted type of format that was done purposely, so that it could take, just get down to the details, right? Get down to just tell us what it is that we're doing. And so we can do that in a bullet point that, otherwise might take, a few sentences or a paragraph to write. So we were trying to make it as concise as possible so that it could be very easily, there's a lot of information in it, but do it in a way that could be easily applied within a state and adapted to a state's specific circumstances. So the playbook very much is that national perspective, right, that any state could use, and then further provide those details and further tailor that playbook based on, a state-specific, industry makeup, wildlife makeup, where an incursion, might come into the U.S., that sort of thing. So just keep that in mind, that it is that national perspective. So we know that there's a lot of scenarios that we haven't included, that aren't going to be included, and we're trying to address those. We know there's a lot specific to the equine and kind of how diverse and complex, the equine industry can be. And so we are in the process of looking into that and seeing how that we can continue to make it better. And very much that's going to be part because of the input you all provided. So a huge thank you to you all. So we received written feedback from American Quarter Horse Association, U.S. Equestrian Federation, and then the American Horse Council. We've had a meeting with those industries as well as AAEP, and we have another meeting I think coming up next week, Katie, with all of them as well to continue to discuss that feedback. I know it takes time to both review the materials and then to actually submit that written feedback as well as to join us on those calls. So just know and just reiterate what Addis said, that input is so critical. It's been so helpful for our folks as we continue to revise the playbook. And then I was just going to summarize just kind of some of the key things that we've heard from you all that we're continuing to work on. Probably number one is communications. So this type of call, your Equine Disease Communication Center, the need to communicate often. Every, I think, lesson learned that we get from any outbreak response, like after action, is communication is always can be improved. And so we have the screwworm.gov website that was released. And then as part of, preparing for a potential incursion, we have, that communication number one of how that's going to happen so that you all aware of what's going on, your equine owners know what's going on, depending on kind of that outbreak situation. Treatments has been a big topic of discussion. So we continue to meet with FDA and EPA and kind of understand what's available. We know that we're probably nowhere near what we need, but thankfully, like more and more products do seem to be in the pipeline and getting approved. We heard loud and clear from you all, right, about make sure that we judiciously use those treatments and we don't overuse them. We don't impact, some of our endemic parasites or cause resistance and things like that. So the protocols, what makes sense, what can be used, that's something that we continue to look at. And then how movements will occur. So if we do have an infestation or incursion of this fly into the United States, we'll set up what we call an infested zone. Minimum 20-kilometer infested zone, as Addis mentioned, that's very much based on the science and the biology of the fly itself. So we're trying to manage those zones to not make it bigger than it needs to be. And then as part of that, those animal inspections are so important, both not just to be able to identify and treat cases, but they're essentially our tests. We don't have a diagnostic test, right, that we can do for screwworm. We rely on those visual inspections. But that really helps us to make sure that we're right sizing those zones, to make sure we know where infestation is and is not occurring, to help when we have limited resources, like right now with the sterile fly, so we can strategically know where to release them. So we can know when we can, close those zones. And that really helps us too with discussions about regionalization, because we know that, we still are going to want to support trade and continuity of business, both within the US as far as moving animals, and being able to do that, where we support that continuity of business, that we are able to move those animals and do that safely, as well as we know that it's important for international trade as well, or international movements of horses, for instance. So that very much is being taken into account, and we appreciate that. Some of the kind of the verbiage in what's written now might have a little bit more slant towards livestock. We know that's kind of a different type of movement, and kind of more directional movement that's different, right, from how horses move, whether it's for racing, breeding, working horses that move, trail riding, different events that happen and things like that. So we are, going to try to relook at that and continue to work with you all to continue to improve that and provide those details that you've been asking for and make sure that we're consistent. And then as part of the playbook, last thing, I know when it was released, there was a number of guidance documents that are listed in there that say are under development. So those didn't get released. Part of that was due to the shutdown. So a lot of the folks that were our SMEs for those documents were furloughed. So we are working on that in the background as well. And we're hoping that we have most of those, if not all, released when we revise the playbook. And then obviously we'll continue to have communications, meet with y'all as often as needed to go through those or answer questions and continue to see how we can improve them. And so as our undersecretary and secretary say, we want this playbook to be, the best that we can make it and as perfect as we can make it. And hopefully it's something that we never have to use. But we're very much, this is a priority for us. And just reiterate again, just a huge thank you to you all for your time, for looking at our playbook, for providing that feedback, and for helping us to make it better. So that's all I have, Katie. And if we want to just go straight to our last speaker, I can turn it over to Tim.
Yep, go ahead, Dr. Rector. It's all yours.
if I can make this work. Okay, yep, you can see me, I think. Well, I apologize. I don't really have a presentation. I just wanted to make myself available if uh, anybody had questions about the recent finding of screwworm in a horse in the Miami import quarantines. I know there's a lot of misinformation out there, and happy to answer any questions about import quarantine, this case in particular.
Tim, just for those on the phone to give a brief overview, can you just give a little more detail of what you're referencing? Thank you.
Okay, so there was I don't remember the date, but probably in the last 3 weeks, one of the horse that was imported from Argentina was placed in import quarantine in the Miami, one of the private quarantines in Miami, and then went through the process. And at the end of his quarantine, he was being examined for under sedation for screwworm, and we found a open wound or open lesion with larvae in it. They were removed. The wound was cleaned, treated. It was ultimately they were identified as New World screwworm larvae. The horse was treated a number of times, examined a number of times, and then ultimately released as unaffected. There was some news in the I've read this in the press that there was a horse positive in running around Florida with screwworm. It was never out of the quarantine, and all our quarantine processes seemed effective, worked. It was kind of a routine day for us, but with the other screwworm issues going on, everybody got pretty well worked up over it. And this isn't the first one that we've had in Miami. Last March we had another one from Argentina also, and it was handled similarly, no issues. But I'm happy to answer any questions about.
Okay.
I'm not sure where everybody's knowledge base is on this. Sorry.
Yep, no problem. That was a good overview. And now I'm going to open it up for questions. You can put them in the chat. I have received some, so I'm just going to start with Dr. Rector. The first one that came in the chat was there treatment of the truck or the conveyance for that horse?
The aircraft, the jet stalls, the trucks are all cleaned and disinfected. They're typically not disinfested. They're not treated with an acaricide or anything like that, or a parasiticide, some product that would kill the flies.
Okay. The question, I believe, what country did this horse enter from? I believe you've already covered that. That's Argentina.
Argentina, correct.
What treatment was provided to the horse that had this screwworm?
Okay, so he was treated with a Coumaphos product and injectable ivermectin.
Did this horse have pre-treatment with ivermectin before?
The health certificate did say that, yes, and pre-treatment and sedated exam.
Okay. I don't see any more from this. I do, so I think that's it for Dr. Rector, but I do have Dr. Diab. First, Dr. Rector, the other comment was thank you very much to the staff and kudos to the staff that actually detected it. It does show that it was working.
Absolutely. And
the process is working for us. So we appreciate all the effort of the import quarantine folks. Dr. Diab, I appreciate you preceding the question about the Mexican border. But we do, as an equine industry, want to remind you that we do have an interest of our horses going back and forth. The longer it's closed, the more worry we have, as we have had evidence previously of illegal imports or illegal crossings of the border of some of our horses that are bringing in EIA and pyro, and we've documented those. So if we could, again, use our processes that we know are effective, as we just saw, to allow horses to cross, that would be greatly appreciated. And the other question that I have received is regarding the treatments. Dr. Holstrom, you mentioned that the guidance is going to include some more specifics regarding treatments. Is that correct?
So, so we're trying to look at it from the standpoint of how best to use treatments in addition to inspections as far as before we move animals out of the infested zone. With the reason, right, that we don't want to bring this fly to new areas. We do have it flag as a gap, right, both in our need for more treatment options, as well as those protocols. And so we know that the FDA can't can't develop those protocols, but are very much interested in taking part. I know that's an active discussion with NASAHO, with industry, and us as well. Because we've heard that across the industry of providing more details of those protocols. What we're trying to do, and we'll get released with the playbook, is more of when is it, or how is it, or what's required as far as using treatment as part of our response.
And the other question that I received for you is, can you confirm that even in infested zone, within the infested zone, excuse me, that horse events, trail rides can still take place?
Yeah, so that'll be right. So we'll be in lockstep with the state, right, and looking at kind of what's going on in that infested zone as part of this response, right? This is not an infectious disease, but we are dealing with this parasite that's in the environment, right? This pest that's in the environment that we're trying to be able to eliminate. And so it's going to be a big focus, right, on doing things that don't increase the risk of wounds or increase, that risk of potentially becoming infested. Our intent with the playbook is to support continuity of business. So what does that mean? So it's not necessarily business as usual, right? Because now if you're in a zone, you're now where we know where this fly is. And so you are having to do some things that are a little bit different, right? To try to prevent animals from being infested or being able to detect that. But with it, we are doing it in a way that can continue to support continuity of business with these kind of additional things that need to be done. So we can safely and try to move, only healthy horses, for instance, or be able to detect if they are infested, but be able to still move animals even if they are in the infested zone.
So we're hearing that we are, with treatments and protocols, able to continue business continuity, continue events, and continue the movement of horses. Similar to what we do for vesicular stomatitis.
Yeah, I think again it'll be a conversation with the states, right, of those events and how things can be done safely, if we can do additional inspections at those events or whatnot. Very much so it's sort of very situational dependent, right, Katie, of kind of what the situation is in that infested zone. But we are meaning to support continuity of business with these additional activities that need to be done to safely be able to do so.
Okay, that's all the questions I have. I don't see any more in the chat. Give it one more minute here. In the meantime, I do thank USDA for getting on the call and giving our equine industry these updates, as it's critical for us in the planning process, so we can also be prepared for the potential for a screwworm incursion. And we do appreciate all the efforts on protecting our industry as well. So thank you to USDA speakers today.
Thank you, Katie. Bye.
Thanks, Dr. Diab. With that, we are going to transition to the American Horse Council Representative Amanda Cadillac, and she is going to give an update on the temporary international movement of equids legislative initiative.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're good to go.
Okay, awesome. So I just wanted to briefly introduce this issue that has been increasingly important for our agriculture community, the equine industry, and international sports tourism, and that's modernizing how we handle temporary imports of elite competition horses. So right now, when high-level horses like those competing in FEI events, international racing, or major breed championships come into the US for short-term competitions, they're processed under the same rules that apply to any horse entering the country. Those rules weren't exactly designed for short stays or for horses that already meet the extremely rigorous global health and biosecurity standards. As a result, owners and trainers often face unpredictable delays, burdensome quarantine processes and non-standardized requirements. And that discourages a lot of them from bringing their horses to US-based events. And we end up losing both competitors and significant economic activity associated with those competitions. So in response to that, we've drafted what we're calling the Temporary International Movement of Equines Act. And that seeks to fix the situation by aligning US policy with the internationally recognized framework developed by WOA, the World Organization for Animal Health. And that is the High Health, High Performance Framework, shortened most often to HHP. That framework has already been adopted in many other leading equestrian countries, and it defines high health, high performance horses and establishes science-based standards for identification, traceability, and disease prevention. And these horses are already among the most closely monitored athletes in the world. And if we can try to make their movement in and out of the country easier, it doesn't make sense not to try. A key feature of the bill is recognition of the role that governing bodies like U.S. Equestrian Federation, the FEI, and breed and racing organizations play. These groups already certify the health status, identification, and competition history of participating horses. And for organizations who maybe don't already do so, in order to participate in the framework, they would need to make those certifications. So under the bill, USDA would formally accept those certifications and implement a risk-based, streamlined entry process specific to just those low-risk horses. That would mean faster entry, consistent rules, modernized quarantine procedures, while still maintaining strong protections for herd health. At its core, it's a science-driven update that would make the U.S. more competitive for hosting major international equine events. It would strengthen biosecurity, and it would support a sector that delivers meaningful economic benefits to our local communities. That's a pretty high-level overview. We have a discussion draft that we're working on with Congressman Tonko's office. I'm also in discussions with members on both sides of the aisle and both sides of the Hill to build further support for this. And I guess at this point, I can open it to any questions anyone might have. But before that, Dr. Flynn and anybody else on, there is a House Agriculture Committee stakeholder call at 2 p.m. to go over the tenets of the Farm Bill. So if I have to hop off, I'm going to put my email address in the chat so that you can ask questions afterwards.
Thanks, Amanda. Just a couple of other updates to this. I've been working with American Horse Council as well as the folks from AAP on this initiative. We have been up to the Hill and speaking to legislators. We don't have anybody that is against this initiative at this time. The other thing I would like to call to your attention is we actually do have support of various livestock national organizations as well as the American Farm Bureau. So we have done our due diligence to address any other concerns of those industries. However, they do support and understand the high health standards that are taking place at these international events, whether it's for competition or racing horses. So just so you're aware, this is the legislative initiative that is just going to, number one, identify the subpopulation of high health, high performance horses, and number two, put it to task for USDA to promulgate regulations. So that's the 2 points within this bill, this Time Act, as Amanda mentioned, and it does not have the details. It only has an outline of the needs for high health, or excuse me, the definition of high health, high performance subpopulation.
I think it's important to point out that in our conversations with USDA, they ask us to do this to help move this along. You want to speak about that just a minute? Because we're not surprising them. They really want to be collaborative in this effort.
Yeah, so this has been an ongoing effort of conversations with USDA. previously with Dr. Sifford and Administrator Watson. They have been involved in these discussions, recognizing that USDA doesn't have the time, money, or resources to do an overhaul of their equine import regulations. So this is really giving them the means to do so by making a law that does recognize this subpopulation and gives them the authority to write or promulgate regulations. So we as an industry are supporting that process to move forward. We are also, as an industry, as a side project on this, is the USDA also needs a risk assessment in order to make some of these rule changes. And as an industry, we have solicited a entity that has done risk assessments previously for the swine industry that USDA has recognized and utilized in the process. So we have reached out and have gotten a quote and an outline of a risk assessment proposal for the equine industry. And American Horse Council will be looking forward to soliciting funding sources to help us get this risk assessment done to, again, support the promulgation of regulations that are being directed by this legislative initiative. I think that about covers it. We just wanted to bring it to your attention. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask now, or if you think about them, feel free. Amanda did put her email in the chat, or you can reach out to myself, Julie, or Amanda at any point in time. But this is a big effort that we've been putting a couple years into. And I appreciate the support of the American Horse Council, the Breed and Disciplines, as well as the AAP and the Jockey Club that is supporting this initiative and moving it forward, because this is going to help international movement and trade of our competition and racehorses. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions, comments, or concerns folks might have. Okay, hearing none or seeing none. Amanda, thank you for your time and effort on this. We really appreciate everything you're doing to help us push this forward.
You're very welcome.
We do hope, fingers crossed, that we will get a bill introduced. Our goal is to get it introduced hopefully in March at some point here in the very, very near future. So this is not a pipe dream anymore of mine. It is actually looking like we might actually get it across the finish line.
Unless I can get it tacked on to the Farm Bill as an amendment in committee level, which I'm trying.
Yeah, good luck on that one. Well, we'll just wish you luck on that one, Amanda. But hopefully we will get this through. Any other questions, concerns on this? I'm seeing none. Okay, we'll transition now. Julie, it is your floor for the Horse Protection Act.
So good afternoon. Thank you everyone for some time to give you an update on where we are with the Horse Protection Act. Before I begin, a little disclaimer. I have been talking about this in my sleep. This has been the bane of my existence since the regulations were rolled out in 2024. If you look up bane of existence, it says it's a topic that causes constant annoyance, frustration, and great distress, and acts as a primary source of misery. And I think we can all agree that that is an accurate description for this. So just a little background for those who are not as familiar and bring everybody up to speed. The Horse Protection Act went into effect in the 1970s to address the cruel and egregious act of soring. It's primarily in Tennessee walking horses, spotted saddle horses, and racking horses. And however, over the course of the years, the rule does not restrict it to those three breeds. It applies to all breeds. So when the last rules and regs came out, they've been modified several times over the course of years, over the last 50 years. But when they came out in 2024, they broadened their reach in asking all horse shows and expos and events to report and to follow through on a number of different processes and procedures. And this caused great outrage in the industry, especially for the breeds and disciplines that have not had any history in soaring at all. So we spent a lot of time in 2025 working with a large number of stakeholders, breeds and discipline associations, and others in the industry to kind of come together about what kind of comments we'd like to provide USDA, how we could provide them guidance, how we could kind of reel this back in. And I just wanted to say that their initial plan was to roll this out, and they were delaying it until February of 2026. We pleaded with them to delay it further. So now it's been delayed further till December of this year. And we've had multiple conversations with Undersecretary Hoskins, with the new head of animal care, Bernadette Juarez, and Field Services Manager Luis DeVicente, to talk a little bit about what their plans are and how this is going to kind of play out. We are continuing to convene regularly a working group to craft new legislative language, which we are calling the Horse Protection Improvement Act. We've worked closely with AAEP, AVMA, and the American Farriers Association to kind of ensure that we isolate and we sort of well define what is part of this legislation and how it should move forward. And so we are at the point right now where we've got language drafted and we are refining that. We've been working with some congressional offices and their legislative councils to help us more concisely craft what that language might look at, make certain it is comfortable not only for the industry, but for animal welfare groups who we have worked with in the past on this. And we did meet this week with Bernadette Juarez to ask her to clarify for us that when they made the recent announcement about delaying this, that there was not a accompanying comment period with this. And she said no, because of the confusion, because of the concerns that had been expressed, they moved straight to a final rule. There's no comment period. There's nothing that we can provide. We are asking them to consider some listening sessions. We are asking them to work more closely with the industry to talk about how we might craft something that would be amenable to all involved. So lots and lots of moving parts with this. I will say USDA has indicated that they cannot move forward with any rules or regulation development until the litigation cases have been resolved. Right now, there are 3 cases that are either have been adjudicated or are pending, and they need all of that to be resolved so they know what's been vacated and what has not, and can be included, and how to navigate all that. So still so much swirling about this, and we're trying really hard to help them, and they really want to work with us to ensure that when we get ready to go forward, everybody's on the same page. So I'll just pause there, Dr. Flynn, and say that's a really short synopsis of where we are with this. And please stay tuned because there's more to come. And we will, our intention is once we have something back from Legislative Council to share that verbiage widely so everybody knows sort of where we're going. Our objective is to restrict the rules to the 3 breeds that have a history of soaring, and we are trying very hard to ensure that the Tennessee Walking Horse and other breeds have due process, they have some appeals. We want to work with them also to ensure that they have a good, sound mechanism to ensure that they are being good stewards for the horses that are there, as well as working with our side of the industry who sees this from perhaps a different point of view and has some very specific needs that they feel like need to be met. So, Katie, you want to add on? You're part of this conversation.
I do just want a clarification. Clarification that the change that was recently made where it's going to be enacted it's been delayed till December. Did you say that that's a final rule that cannot be commented on?
That's correct. What we heard from Bernadette Juarez yesterday was the announcement of the delay was a final ruling. There is no comment period for that.
Okay. Just that is a clarification that what that means is it's not delayed again, and it can't be delayed again because it was a final ruling. So, okay, thank you for getting that clarification, because that has been one of the questions that has been circulating is, does the industry have an opportunity to provide that input any longer? So it is good news that they are willing to have conversations for moving forward with regulations.
Yes, and I will add one of the questions we specifically asked on our call with them this week, Dr. Flynn, was, so what are you doing this year until we get to the end of 2026? What's the inspection process? How does this work? And what we were told was they are holding training in March in Tennessee, I believe Shelbyville, with DQPs, and then they're going to hold a town hall meeting. They plan to invite industry to be part of that conversation and be part of either observing the training session or being part of the town hall meeting to understand what they're doing. So look for some more information about that. But they're really having to refine what they can do this year based upon the injunctions and the vacated parts of the law that have already been ruled upon.
Okay. Any questions or additional comments? Feel free to put it in the chat, text me, or just open up your line. Well, Julie, I'm not seeing anything, so I will say we definitely appreciate American Horse Council's efforts to try to navigate through this issue and move it forward so that we're best protecting all of our equine industry and doing what is science-based and common sense for our industry.
Exactly. That's what we've tried to impress upon them is there's no reason for overreach into the larger industry. I think it was surprising to them, Katie, when we said, you understand we have 50,000 horse shows a year, and you're going to ask them all to follow this reporting process and do all these other things. And they were things that I think they admit now that they had not understood before. So I'm finding a better partnership and a better communication and collaboration between the parties, because I think they need some insights from us.
Great. Well, I'm opening up the line to anybody that has any final comments, questions, concerns for the equine industry. Hearing none, I look forward to our next call in March on the same time. We are going forward every month. So we look forward to talking to you. As always, we appreciate any topic or speaker suggestions. Have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie.
Thanks, everyone.